Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I am resuming a series that I actually started quite a while ago, I think about 2 years ago, which is pros and cons of living in the DR or moving to the Dominican Republic. And this is just a series of short videos. The idea was to make it a series so that I didn't have to remember all the pros and cons in one video and then later think of more and then do a part 2 and all that. So when I started the series, I just was talking about one thing at a time, one pro or one con. But now, resuming it, I want to do it a little bit differently. And what I want to do is talk about one thing and talk about the pros and cons of that certain aspect of living here. So the first thing I want to talk about today is food, more specifically produce. What can you buy at the grocery store, what you can find and what you can't find. Anyways, let's talk about it. In case you don't watch my Spanish videos, my MacBook is broken. So we are just sort of freestyling. It's not going to be very edited. And yeah, that's the idea. I want to make it short and sweet. And my neighbors have birds, so if you hear those in the background, believe me, I put on background noise reduction, but they're still there. Hopefully you like the sound of birds. So let's talk about produce. One con, well, I should start with the pro. One pro of living here is that a lot of things can grow naturally here, and yes, they still do have seasons of different fruits, like when they can be harvested. Just like any other fruit, there's a time when it's harvested, a time when it's being grown, and even though the weather is fairly stable year-round, the fruits and vegetables that are naturally grown here do have seasons when they're in season. So first pro is that a lot of things can be grown here since it is a very tropical climate. A lot of delicious things like plantains, avocados, mangoes, pineapples, bananas, and many, many more. So there are a lot of produce options. For me, I found it fairly easy to adapt my lifestyle to eating mostly produce that is native here, naturally found here. So that is something you can do. And another pro is that local produce is going to be more often than not cheap, on the cheaper side at least. These birds are really distracting me, to be honest. I'm sorry. But the con is that anything that's imported will be very, very expensive. So one thing that's a pro of living in the US is that you have a lot of variety. So I would say the produce section in the US supermarkets where I shop is about 2 times, if not 3 times bigger than the produce section here. And you can just find any kind of fruit or vegetable, whether or not it's in season, which can be a good and a bad thing because yes, you can eat strawberries all year long, whether or not they're in season, and apples too. But at what cost? Because you have to realize maybe they're not in season, but how are they growing them? Is there like some artificial thing going on? Are they being picked prematurely? Because that's another problem, because if they're gonna come from farther away because they're not in season, then they're gonna be picked when they're not as fresh. So when they get to you, they might not be at their peak in terms of nutrients or their peak in terms of freshness, and they might decline rather fastly or spoil quickly. So you have to keep that in mind, that even though you have access to everything, which is great, I love eating strawberries year-round, here I don't do that, but are they the best ones? Another thing to consider is a lot of the produce here is just going to be natural. I don't really see anything about them having GMOs, but in the US that's very common. Things are just huge there. The only thing that's bigger here are the avocados. Interrupting this broadcast to bring you Exhibit A. This is as big as my head. Like, the avocados are priced per unit, so I was like, I might as well buy the biggest one I can find. So here we are. And I also want to mention that avocados aren't that cheap. At least locals right now are telling me they're not. So, and by locals I mean my husband, but I bought it anyways. It's huge because they're like a different kind of avocado, I've learned. And the ones there are from Mexico. Yeah, the ones there are very small, but everything else there is just extremely large, unnaturally large. And one thing I've noticed is that getting produce here, like strawberries, I got a few times, they are sweeter, like the taste is more dense, I would say, because the strawberry is smaller and it feels like it has the same amount of sweetness as the huge strawberries in the US, but the sweetness there is like more spread out throughout the whole strawberry, so it kind of has less taste, if that makes any sense. So that's one thing to consider, the produce. What kind of produce do you like to eat? Are you willing to adapt your lifestyle to eat more produce that is locally grown here? Because that will help you a lot to save money if that's something you want to do, which is always good for me. Or the fact that you'll be able to find it at all is a huge plus if you are okay with adapting your lifestyle to consuming mostly local produce. Easy to find things here are peppers, plantains, eggplants, mangoes, pineapples, bananas, very popular as well. You can always find lemons or limes. You can find potatoes, yuca, sweet potato. Well, the sweet potato is a little bit different. And tomatoes, always as well. Carrots, and there's like a kind of squash here called aoyama. I think it's in English it's called King Indian pumpkin squash or something like that. Not very common in the US, but you'll find some new things here that maybe you wouldn't find in the US, but in the US you definitely find a lot more variety. So if you really like the variety, you need the variety, take this into consideration. If you're okay with limiting or changing your lifestyle, your diet, your eating habits, then it might be something that's okay for you, easy for you to adapt to living here. So that is the video for today. I just wanted to keep it short and simple. I will talk more about other aspects of living here in future videos, so please subscribe and like this video to show me that you want more. So I will end this video here. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one.